Hello everyone and welcome to the MASNA Award presentation. Starting in 2017, MASNA recognizes 2 individuals for their work in the marine aquarium hobby that positively contribute to the ongoing sustainability of our hobby and future marine environments through the MASNA Award and the MASNA Aquarist of the Year. The MASNA Award is historically what was called the Aquarist of the Year Award. The MASNA Award is to recognize those individuals who have contributed a lifetime of achievement to the marine aquarium industry, not only recently, but in the past. I am honored to say that our 2020 Aquarist of the Year is none other than Alf Jacob Nilsen. Alf has received the MASNA Award for his foundational role in developing, documenting, and communicating processes and advancements in the marine aquarium industry. If you're interested in learning more about Alf, you could head to masna.org and read the press release. We now have a recorded call with Alf, co-author Svein, and some other historic MASNA Award winners.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Erickson, MASNA President. Thank you for joining us here today on this call.
And I'm Matt Peterson, MASNA Award winner 2009, Senior Editor and Associate Publisher for Coral Magazine. But today, I'm here as the, I guess you would call it the new chair or leader of the MASNA Award and Aquarist of the Year Award Program. And it's my honor to welcome this fine assembly of very, very distinguished aquarists as we discuss our 2020 MASNA Award winner, Alf Jacob Nilsen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Svein Fosså from Norway, and I've been involved with the aquarium hobby, trade, and the legal aspects of aquarium keeping and trade for most of my life, actually. And I've been lucky to work together with Alf Jacob for 35 plus years. At the moment, I'm Secretary General of the Norwegian Pet Trade Association, Chairman of the Scandinavian Pet Trade Union, President of the European Pet Organization, and Vice President of Ornamental Fish International, plus Editor-in-Chief of the Pet Scandinavia magazine. So I have problems at times knowing what hat to put on.
Yeah, I'm Julian Sprung, and I am president of Two Little Fishies, manufacturing company in the aquarium industry. At one time, author and co-author with Charles Delbick of Reef Aquarium books. Now I tend to fill out forms and and manage employees, but occasionally get to design and work on new aquarium products, which is what I really enjoy doing. And I do enjoy the aquarium hobby very, very much. So it's really a pleasure being here to congratulate Alf Jacob. We go back a long, long way to really I think it was before Two Little Fishies, or right at the start of it, when I first met him. And I had quite a few occasions to enjoy looking at really beautiful aquariums, as well as enjoying wonderful meals. He definitely lives the life and enjoys good times and travel and good experiences with friends. So it's, for me personally, a very special occasion to share this award with him. And I'm glad to be here with you all. Okay.
Hello, I'm Charles Delbick. I am the 2008 MASNA Award winner, and along with Julian Sprung, I co-authored a series of books called The Reef Aquarium, as well as having lectured at over, 100-something conferences and published numerous articles, well over 100, over the years in various magazines and online forums. And I'm currently the curator of fishes and aquatics at the Steinhardt Aquarium in the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco. And I'm trying to remember when I first met Alf. I don't know if it was at a MACNA conference or it was out in Hawaii when I was working there.
It was in Europe. It was in Europe, I think.
Oh.
I think it was on a conference in Europe. You came over, I think.
Was it the one in Strasbourg in France?
No, it was
No?
no, it wasn't in France. It might have been in Germany. I remember you borrowed my bedroom because you were so tired after flying.
Huh, that's right. Yeah, anyway, see,
Yeah.
we are four very old people, but some of us still have better memories than others. So, and then, I remember, like I was telling the story about Alf's disbelief at how we were keeping corals at the Waikiki Aquarium in these little plastic fiberglass boxes out in the full sun and with lead weights on our airlines. And I remember Bruce's response was, well, it's open system. Oh, you said, oh. But still, it was you were incredulous that we had lead in our aquariums.
Yeah.
And then I had the pleasure of dining with Alf in San Francisco when he came with his family to visit. We went out to Benihana and watched the chefs chop up the meat in front of us.
Yeah.
It got smoked out of the restaurant. So congratulations! I know that I've been sort of touting your horn for a while too as a MASNA Award winner. So it's very gratifying. Along with Julian, I share that gratification and honor and deep respect for the work that you've done and being able to have that finally recognized with both you and Svein, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think one thing I would like to just add and note is that this is a new thing for all of us to be presenting this award in this manner. And it's afforded us, it's taken maybe perhaps some of the pomp and circumstance out of our presentation of bringing the fish out on stage. But on the flip side, I think we've never before had the opportunity to really get to know the award recipient in this more long form, in this casual setting. And, so we look forward, Kevin, I still believe it is our intentions to bring, or at least invite Alf next year to MACNA 2021, which will be held in
Atlanta, Georgia, September 3rd to the 5th, 2021.
Alf will be in Peru.
He'll be in Peru.
Move it to
He'll be in
Peru. I will be in the rainforest.
Bring you up and then bring it out.
We'll video you in
Zoom call.
rainforest.
Right.
We'll send you a satellite phone and you can just, Skype in.
All right. Well, fair enough. But I'm really happy that everyone was able to join on this discussion and this call and to talk about the impact that Alf has had on all of our hobbies and our partnerships and collaborations with him. I think this is a very special way to recognize Alf this year. So
This book.
Is that second one, Charles? Was that the second volume or was that?
Yeah, that's the second
Yeah,
volume.
okay.
There were 5, right, Svein?
English only 4, but German 5, as we didn't do the fish volume in English.
Yeah, I thought I used to have the old one, the first Norwegian one, but I cannot find it. I think Julian's got them too, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I've got it right here.
it goes
He's got 'em right
towards,
in his thumb.
yeah, he's got a whole room right there full of them. Alf, didn't you write, and Svein, didn't you guys write a FAMA article too back in the early 90s?
Oh, I
Do you
wrote
recall?
many. I don't remember when and where, but a lot of articles in the 90s, yes.
Well, that
Started
was
in the 90s.
that was
Yeah.
something
Yes,
Julian
you're
brought up.
referring to this article series on coral keeping, which was quite extensive in Pharma, but I have no idea what year it was.
Yeah, I want to say it was the early 90s because that's when I think I first heard of Alf and you.
Yeah.
Is that right, Julian? Is that
Yes.
your recollection as well?
Yes.
I want to say it was like 91 or 90.
Yeah, Julian, you came to visit. You remember? You called me from the States and say, "Are corals really growing out of lava rocks?" And then you took the first plane. When was that? That must have been in the early 90s or
Very early. I think it was either 1990 or 91.
yeah. Because
And
we were in Germany, Svein and I, in '85.
yeah,
And then when we saw these things happening, and so it could also be late 80s maybe, or you wasn't even born then.
it was either 90 or 91. I have a couple of photos, and I do remember that very, very well. And we made some interesting trips. That nowadays it's so typical to communicate by email. And, you know, back then we communicated by fax. It's a pity because the fax paper would always fade. Had I, you know, had foresight, I would have photocopied the faxes, or I would have used my phone. No, that wouldn't have worked. We didn't have phone cameras, right?
Yeah, I was communicating with Stuber via mail. So I would write him letters and I would get letters back. And I would say that was in 1988.
Yeah.
He would send me all these big glossy photos of his Acropora and his tanks.
I remember you sharing that. And I wrote some letters too. I have some of that, but most of the time, like people nowadays, I was impatient and I wanted more immediate communication. So there were a lot of faxes. And so, but unfortunately that, you know, correspondence is lost because nobody saved faxes.
But I remember, Alf, when Julian came back from visiting you in Norway, and I went to see him in Miami. Every morning for breakfast, we had waffle bread with goat cheese on it.
Oh, yeah.
That was his new breakfast.
That's right.
But how many times did you come with us to Germany, Julian? Twice?
At least twice. Where we did these trips. We went across on a shuttle to Denmark and then drove down into Germany. So I think twice that we did. And we visited, what's his name? Yeah, we visited Klaus Jansen on one trip. And
Jan Olsen.
Jan Olsen is who I'm trying to remember. Jan Olsen in his shop.
And Alf, when was the first time you went to Hawaii when you visited Bruce? Because I think
I think we went there in 91 when we did the round the world trip to diving in Australia.
Yeah, I was there then.
We traveled to Fiji and then to Hawaii.
But I think you came again, right? Because I remember I was there then.
In 91, we got the permit to collect Acropora fragments on a reef in Fiji. So I went with this university guy in Fiji, and we collected some fragments. And I brought them to Norway via Hawaii. So we took them to Bruce's place, and he put them in tanks for a couple of days, and then we repacked them and took them back home to Norway.
Amazing.
That was in 1991.
I remember when I was in Waikiki, you came to visit, and you were taking photos of our outdoor coral tanks, those little squares, and you just kept swearing the entire time.
Oh, yeah?
Because we had little lead weights on all the airlines in the corners of the tank. And you kept saying, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And you're taking all these photos. You've got lead in here? Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. We also used those photos in the books, a couple of them. You remember?
Yep, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you came here to San Francisco. We went to Benihana.
Yeah.
With your wife and son.
Yeah, right. That was in 2011, maybe, or 9?
Yeah.
9 or 11, I think, yeah.
Was the first book that was published in Swedish, was that was previous to 1998, but was that after the trip to Hawaii? And
this one here.
It was in the 80s.
88.
Yeah.
88, okay.
Look at these guys. Can you see it?
Haven't changed one bit.
Not a bit.
Not at all.
And then that kind of spurred on the trips later on through the mid 90s, and to go research and find, what was happening throughout the world.
Yeah. From 85 when we went to Germany, and until 2010, the book published, the book writing and stuff had just kept on rolling.
Yeah.
For 30 years.
So I wanted to know how you and Sven had connected, where your friendship had started.
Sven, I think we met when Sven was in high school, in his place in Sandnes, and I was in the teaching academy, and so we met there in an aquarium club. And then we after that we went to university together on the same university in Bergen and continue continued the work with aquariums, and then we wrote some lectures, and yeah, we participated in a lecture competition in Scandinavia, which we happened to win.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, it just kept on rolling. And then came, that was in, when was that, Svein? In 80 to 82, I think?
The competition on the lecture, that was in 1981.
Yeah, but in Bergen, we were together from 80 to 82, 83 or something like that.
Something like that. And after you moved back to Stavanger, we stayed in touch and visited each other every now and then. And on a trip to a conference in Sweden in 1985, we started to talk in the car about the need for getting some real quality advice on marine aquarium keeping out to the aquarium community. And it happened that a Swedish publisher was present at the same conference, and we spoke to him, and he thought it was a good idea, said that, well, a small book, maximum 128 pages would be superb.
Yes.
And it soon turned out that there was no way we could fit it in 128 pages.
Yeah.
That sounds so familiar, right, Julian? I mean, I think we started having that same discussion maybe in 1988 or so about.
That's right.
We really need some good books out here in English, and also books that are grounded in fact and research, and not just in anecdotal things, and trying to back up what we knew we were seeing in our tanks and back it up with scientific, thoroughness behind it. But nowhere near the level that Svein and Alf did when it came to documenting the life and especially the micro life and the photography and all that. But almost very parallel. It's kind of interesting to hear you talk about that, Svein and Alf, and how it paralleled the same thought process that Julian and I had gone through when we started doing our books.
In 81, 82, when we met this Swedish publisher, the reef aquarium in Scandinavia didn't really exist. It was a marine tank that was overgrowing with algae and dead coral skeletons. And it was not until we have seen what was going on in Germany in 85 that we really discovered what this was all about. But there was one thing happening prior to that was a big part of the success, and that was our correspondence with Peter Wilkins, who at that time lived in Switzerland. And he has cooperated with the Berlin guys, and he was the one that was putting me, at least, on the right track. So when we visited these guys in 85 and saw these living reef tanks in Berlin and elsewhere in Germany and also in Switzerland, then we really got the more understanding of what this was all about. So that was, in 1985 was a big change, at least for me. After visiting the guys in Berlin, and especially Dietrich Stüber, but also other aquarists there. And the tanks there were run by 4 very simple principles. They were using very small skimmers that they were homemade, very thin. They were not more than 5 centimeters across. And they were using metal-headed lamps, and they were adding calculus water, and they were using live rocks. That's it.
Mm. And I think that, well, for me, the new view on marine aquarium keeping started a bit before I learned about Peter Wilkins, as I corresponded with Lee Shin Eng in Indonesia, who was the guy behind the natural aquarium concept. And this whole idea of adding an extensive microfauna in the aquarium was something so totally different from how Europeans mostly were keeping aquaria. And I'm 100% sure it was the same in the US, that we were looking for sterile aquarium systems rather than having all sorts of things we didn't really know what was. And but this the use of the live rock in the German tanks was in a sense building on the natural system of Li Xineng also, as Li Xineng was among the very first people to exhibit live rock at the Interzoo show in Nuremberg.
Yeah. But live rocks were introduced by Mr. Gruber, a German aquarist in the late 60s actually, or early 70s. He brought them back from the Mediterranean. Yeah, so it has been on the scene for a while, but when we were there in '85, it was now commonly used in Berlin, and the results was stunning.
And in North America, Li Cheng wrote that series of articles in TFH magazine,
Yeah.
and the editors discredited it and said it wasn't possible and ridiculed it.
Yeah.
And that's set us back 20 years. I mean, it took 20 years later before it got reintroduced, mainly through the articles from George Smith that appeared in Famine in '86 and '85.
But that sounds terribly familiar, as when our first book in German was reviewed by Herbert Axelrod in TFH, he also wrote that it was a nice book, but it was full of rubbish. As no one could keep those corals in an aquarium. No way, he said, even though most of our photos were actually from aquariums.
Yeah, a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And I must add that I gave a lecture around the same time in an aquarium conference in Great Britain, and I was afterwards verbally attacked by one of the leading people in the marine aquarium scene, the trade in the UK, for being totally immoral, as people would be killing millions of corals from what I had said in my talk. This was never going to happen. People can't keep corals in an aquarium, out of the question.
Yeah.
And that whole mentality persisted into the early '90s, especially in the scientific community. Because I remember there was that article in Audubon was called Raiders of the Reef, where they quoted a number of scientists said it wasn't possible. And even my future, one of the colleagues here at the Steinhardt Aquarium, who was the director of the aquarium, said that even they couldn't keep corals alive because if it wasn't for U.S. Fish and Wildlife confiscations, they wouldn't even have a coral tank because it just couldn't be done.
Well, scientists continue to claim that whenever they keep a coral for a long time or reproduce a fish species, they are the first in the world to do it, even if hobbyists has been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah. So,
Alf, you mentioned around the late '80s, you realized that addition of calcloster, the calcium water, to the tank could potentially, be one of the four pillars. Kind of, how did that kind of influence you and then the development of your methods and physical kind of procedures?
When I returned from Germany, I already had a couple of tanks going, but I started to build a new tank where I used the four principles: the metal halide lamp, the calcareous water, live rock, and the small skimmer. And it ran for many years, and corals just grew, and it worked. Yeah, but I used natural seawater because I happen to live on the bottom of the North Sea, or close to the North Sea. So I've always used natural seawater. That's a difference, and my interest in it has always been to introduce biodiversity in the reef tank, not to select only corals and some small fish, but to let the algae and all the biodiversity that comes with it flourish in the aquarium. I believe that to keep a rich amount of microorganisms together with heavy skimming or good skimming is the way to go. I don't hate it, but I don't like the aquariums where looks like a coral garden without any micro stuff at all. There are many of those today, as I've seen. I'm not into it as much now as I was, but still I think that people should not forget to to introduce and keep biodiversity in their aquariums, from the tiniest organisms to the bigger fish. That's my opinion. I think it's important for the balance and for the longevity of the aquarium.
Yeah, that point is one of the things that I really enjoy so much about the work that you've done, Alf, and you're sharing your experience with people, because on the one hand, both you and Swain showed the technology. Here's how you do it. This is the equipment that you use. And that's what the typical new aquarist looks for. They want to know, okay, what are the secrets? What's the technique? Okay, do I buy this light? Do I buy this filter? And at the same time, I know that you personally were really, really interested in the microalgae, the macroalgae, the sponges, all the little invertebrates, things that you see with a microscope, which I also, share a joy of. And this comes from being, having a background in biology,
Yes.
right? So I think that for me, that was a big connection in our friendship, and not just appreciating the aquarium, but the whole biology involved.
Yeah, and my interest in biology started out very early in life, and when we came to 1980, I went to the university. I was intrigued by coral reef biology. So what I did the first year was to skip all the exams in the middle of the year and took all the money and flew out to the Maldives and did a dive trip. Wow. to study and to see the coral reefs for myself. That was the first time, and that you can imagine diving in the Maldives in 1980. It was totally unspoiled, totally unspoiled. Today these reefs are spoiled, but then this was the motivation for trying to learn how to keep coral reef organism in captivity. So that was the biological motivation. That was my natural interest for coral reef biology.
Yeah.
And if I may add something which we probably should have addressed earlier, but going back to the time I first met Alf Jacob, it must have been in 76, I think, or perhaps 77, when I put an advert in the local newspaper asking for people who were interested in restarting the local aquarium club to come to this meeting at my high school. And among the people who turned up was Alf Jacob. And I didn't speak with him for more than 10 minutes before I realized he was every bit as nerdy as I myself when it came to aquariums in general. Yeah. And that was when we connected. And I don't think I've ever before or since encountered anyone who have been just as curious about everything relating to aquarium technique and biology as myself, but in addition being willing to experiment and test out everything. There he has a patience which I've never had. So I think that's the key reason why our collaboration worked so well.
Yeah, we filled each other in a way, I think. Yeah.
So Kevin was asking about Kalkwasser, which of course was Peter Wilkins' introduction as a critical factor for success, but you touched upon its use, but you didn't mention the Nilsen reactor that you devised.
That's a funny story, because in 1987 I was struck by a discus prolapse in my back, and I was put on these tablets for I got 14 a day, and I was I don't know if you can say that in English, but I was in the 8th heaven. and when I recovered a little bit, I laid there on my back and couldn't move, and then that was when I figured out how to construct the reactor. So then I constructed it in my head and put it on paper when I got back home, and then I tested it out, and it worked.
So for those who don't know what this reactor is, could you explain it a little bit? I know that Rob, who wasn't here today, it was one of the things he mentioned in his email, was he's still using one. So
yeah, it's basically a tube where you use an electric what you call spinner,
Magnetic
Sure.
spinner at the bottom to mix calcium hydroxide and water. And you use a level sensor in the aquarium that reacts to evaporation. And when water from the aquarium evaporates, it refills water into the reactor that overflows into the aquarium. So you get a mixing of calcium hydroxide and water, and that refills, that makes calcium or kalkwasser, and that refills the evaporation of the aquarium. What happened was that the pH rose, of course, and then it was combined with CO2 and after a while, but that's another story. That's a further development of the system.
So for the modern Coral Reef Aquarium Volume 2, that was in the early 90s. Certainly there were a lot of advancements throughout the 80s, and then you kind of, were there items that led to the further volumes that you just couldn't fit into Volume 2, or were each of them kind of a collective knowledge up until that point, or the further knowledge up until that point?
The first one was about technique, and that was pretty planned that it should be mostly about technique. But then after that, I think we discussed, didn't we, Svein, with the German publisher, what to combine in the different volumes?
Yes, we did. I think no matter how you look at it, it has been a work in progress the whole time, as for every new edition of every volume, we have felt the need to add things that we didn't think of when the first book came out. And for at least a couple of the volumes, I think we are up to 4 or 5 different editions, every one with new stuff added. So that's the problem with that kind of books. You never really finish them.
Yeah, and now it should be added that during the work with all those volumes, especially when we started out on the German series, not so much for the Swedish series, but the German series, we corresponded and got help from a lot of scientists. And I never experienced any negative feedback at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can mention, I want to thank them today. I mean, we corresponded with or cooperated with like Alderslade in Australia, who investigated or samples of soft corals that we collected in aquariums, and ID'd them to species. I corresponded and cooperated with Charlie Veron, with Carden Wallace in Townsville, and a lot of all over the world, and not to forget Bruce Carlson and Marjawai in Hawaii. Of course. So, but we never experienced any negative feedback from scientists at all, whether it was on corals, whether it was on worms, on sea squirts, and whatever. But we corresponded with a lot of scientists, and they were always positive to the project, to the books, to the publications.
And collectively now, between the different languages and the different versions, of over 100,000 copies sold, is that right?
Yeah, something between 105 and 110,000 copies, I think.
So we're sitting on a Zoom call with 4 incredibly, you are 4 authors.
Oh,
No. You're 4 authors who are, I would argue, could be considered definitive in our hobby. And so I would like all of you to take a moment just to speak to the change that you've seen as we've shifted away from sharing knowledge through books to like a modern platform like we're doing today here on Zoom. If you would take a moment and reflect on that change and what you see both positive and negative that could come from it.
Well, I thought about that before this meeting, and there is an enormous change in what has been achieved technologically in the aquarium hobby. As I said, in '85 in Germany, the technique were pretty simple, but it worked very well. Today, you can get almost anything computerized. I'm not so sure that gives a lot better aquariums. Of course, you can keep special things better, but the general technique, I think, was funded by the German aquarists in the 80s. The principles. I'm more concerned about what's happening in the real world on the reef. I mean, today we warm up the ocean and kill the reef, and maybe there is an aspect now that maybe we will have to repopulate reef areas, and maybe the aquarium technology can play a role in that project in the future, because we are killing the reef, we are warming up the ocean, and it's dying. So no doubt about that. So that's a sad perspective to what's going on with the coral reefs. With the coral reef aquarium, I think there are so many technical things on the market today that it's very hard for a beginner to see what to choose. Very hard. And maybe they should start reading a book instead of buying things. I don't know, maybe.
If I may continue, I interpreted you, Matt, as you were looking at comments on the digital realities of today's world compared to the more analog past, where people actually were proud to have aquarium books. And I'm one of those who are fairly active, following groups on Facebook and stuff, but I have learned not to engage too much in discussions. I love the kind of virtual meeting that we have now, because we are all pretty much on the same pace. We know everyone what the other one is talking about. Not so with a social medium like Facebook, where I frequently have actually tried to give informed answers to questions and end up being told that I use too many words. Can't you just say yes or no? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the real problem in not only marine aquarium keeping today, but in lots of hobbies that people are doing involving live animals, that everyone thinks there is one truth in everything, and please don't confuse me with coming with alternatives. I hope that people will learn gradually to be more critical to what they get of information from the internet, and accept that you do have to learn something. You can't just ask a question and be told in 2 words what to do. But at the moment, I think it doesn't look too good. Therefore, I certainly appreciate that there are physical conferences like MACNA in this world, and I hope we will soon be able to get back to a situation where people meet face to face and actually can have informed and lengthy conversations, so that they understand that there is more to aquarium keeping than just reading a recipe.
Yeah, and let me give a comment there. I think to keep a reef aquarium, it's not enough to have technical knowledge and technical equipment. You need to have biological knowledge in biology, and knowledge about the animals that you keep. That's essential. You cannot run a tank successfully with only technical knowledge. When something happens, you have to know something about the biology of the aquarium and of the animals that you keep. I'm sure Julian and Charles agree on that.
Yeah, completely. And it's even more complicated than that. I want to address the subject of the digital thing, but I know In my history of aquarium keeping, I've encountered people with a biological background who've attempted to set up an aquarium and still failed because of their own very narrow focus in biology, and don't see the whole gestalt, the whole essence of what is an ecosystem aquarium. And that is a revelation for me, because if people like that are put in charge of making decisions on a political basis of what happens in nature, their inability to succeed on a small scale in an aquarium is very telling of what decisions may result in. So I don't mean to be negative on academics. It's not my thrust in life, but I've seen that, and it's sort of a two-pronged thing. You need to have the biological appreciation, the background and understanding, but you also have to have a connection, just like a farmer does. Even though our aquariums are not gardens, there is a feeling, an understanding, an appreciation of animal and plant and their interactions that help instruct you in knowing how to react when you see something happening in an aquarium. And it comes from experience, and I think personally a feeling, connection, which is hard to define. How do you define your personal connection to a coral and knowing its health when you look at it? Very difficult to put that into a description.
It's an empathy with the animal.
It's an empathy, yeah.
It's an empathy that and I've experienced that too. I mean, you can look at a tank and you can just get a feeling from it that something's not right, or you can get a feeling of there's a lot of health there. You get this feeling that there's a vibrancy that you can feel coming.
Right.
And again, I'm with you. I don't know how to explain it and how to explain it verbally to people, but I think a lot of people experience that connection. I think
right. And having the training in biology helps, but it doesn't get you all the way there. There has to be this personal connection as well.
Yeah, I think going back what others are saying about the technologies, I think what the technology has allowed is for a lot more people to get into this hobby and to be successful from the beginning. But I will totally agree with Alf and Svein too about the speed with which people want answers and how quickly they want the answer, and they want to move forward. They want to keep going. They don't want to get confused with too many facts or alternative opinions, and they're looking for a yes or no so they can get that instant gratification and then move on. And I think that's one of the drawbacks to the social media and some of the online things, and also the lack of any kind of fact checking. And then even if you do try to fact check and present alternative explanations, you get attacked, and people get very entrenched in their positions, and it's almost like they want to save face they don't want to admit that maybe they were wrong. And then again, that's why meeting face to face is very important. Maybe I'm old school, but I don't like having extensive long text messages with people. I'd rather just pick up the phone and call me and talk to me, or just meet somewhere and talk about it. The technology is great for some of those things, but for others, I think it's been an impediment. And I don't think it's just, it's not unique just to our hobby. This is what the world is now. And we're seeing that everywhere. There's this more and more polarization between one side and another side. There seems to be this lack of ability to collaborate and to compromise and to come together to a solution and work together towards a solution, whether it be in politics or whether it be environment or whether it just be in a hobby like the aquarium hobby.
I wanted to ask how much a role of photography and just presenting the beauty of it all kind of helps bring in people and keep them, but also attracts them to other resources, books especially, because both, Julie and your books and all the books I see that I'm most interested in aren't just these plain textbooks with just walls of text. I actually want to kind of help visualize what I'm seeing in addition to reading about it.
I think that that's one of the keys of Alf's success. He takes a decent photo.
Yeah, I've been doing photography since I was 14 years old. And photography, nature photography, is a big hobby of mine. So we emphasized during our book work to have high quality photos all the way. There are a lot of books with bad photos, but the photo should be sharp. It should illustrate what you try to illustrate, and it should be composed in a good way. And not all books contain those photos. But I think it's very important to illustrate. If you talk about crustaceans, you have to illustrate the crustacean so you see the species.
Even on the cover of Reef Secrets that I've seen, there's the main image, and then you chose like 3 or 4 or 5 on the side of the cover. Is that right? Is that, you're catching? Yeah, there you go. There, Charles has it in front of him.
Yeah, long time ago.
But that was after volume 4 in English, because that was in 2005, 2003.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was after the English series was completed. I would like to say some thank you words, if possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. When Matt called me up and said he wanted to tell me a secret, I was very surprised. I know I was nominated for the MASNA 2020 prize, but I didn't expect to win it. So I want to thank all the committee for awarding me this MASNA 2020 prize. It's a great honor to accepting it. And there are many people that should be thanked here. First of all, I want to thank Svein for our cooperation in over almost 100 years now. And there are also people that are no longer among us that should be thanked. Peter Wilkins, among others. And I want to thank those old guys in Germany, Dietrich Stüber, Rudi Krause, and all that gang of people that we visited in 1985. Without them, I don't think that we could have achieved what we did. I don't think that would be possible. I think they was the eye-opener for us. And I also have to thank our folks here back home in the family and in the house that had to keep up with me all those years with running down in the cellar and looking after the aquariums and traveling out to the tropics and do diving when I should be home watching kids. Yes. And I want to thank our publisher, the late Gunnar Lundin of Sweden, and the late Werner Schmettkamp in Bornheim, and his wife Birgit, and Matthias Schmidt and Daniel Knoop, and Dieter Bockmann in Natur- und Tierverlag, and of course James Lawrence of Microcosm. All those people, without them, there will have been no book series. And I want to thank Julian and Danny for the cooperation. They played a major role in my motivation for keeping up with the aquarium all those years. And we have a lot of fun time together. And there were also so many fellow aquarists in Norway, Ingvald Ergar, Kenneth Olsen, and not least Jan Olsen is a Norwegian now living in running a shop in Oldenburg in Germany. And I've already mentioned, not forgetting Jan Habers of the Netherlands, who was the editor of the Het Zee Aquarium there. We had a great cooperation for many years, and also the cooperation with all the scientists that I've already mentioned, especially Phil Walderslade, who lived in Darwin when I first met him. He came to Norway, and I think Julian also met him.
Right.
And then he's now living in Tasmania. Yeah. And Charlie Veron, we've been inviting to visit him in Australia. Should have done so, but I haven't found the time, but I will go. Carden Wallace in Australia, Clive Bruce in Adelaide. And so there are so many people that have contributed to this award, and without them, I've not achieved what I have achieved. So thank you to all of you and to all of them. Thank you very much. And of course to Bruce Carlson and Mojawai in Hawaii, who we cooperated for many, many years, and I still have contact with them. Yeah. Thank you.
So Alf, I wanted to just point out the fact that this is the 26th MASNA Award we have given, going back all the way to 1995, starting with Martin Moe Jr., the first recipient. Julian and Charles are both members of the committee. I volunteered to take over running this process from Rob, who retired last year. But he has been a very integral part of helping me take over running this process. And I think every year I think about the MASNA Award. I look back to my own and what that meant to me. And I think people have heard me say this before, but I took it as both a recognition, but also sort of a mandate and a mission, if you will, to continue, that there's more work to be done, and that it is more than just, oh, it's nice, thank you. It's a recognition of the ongoing contributions that have been made, and hope that there could or would be more. So to me, and I don't know, it's just I feel like you're joining the ranks of many prominent aquarists who have done a lot to advance our hobby. And I think a lot of newer aquarists have no idea who many of us are. And it's I would hope that when we present this type of recognition, it's a reminder to the newer hobbyists, hey, these are people you need to check out, look at their work. There's value here. There's things you will find here. So I look at the selection of the MASNA Award winner as also not only just a lifetime of body of work, but as a reminder of where we came from. And so with that, thank you very much for being here. And Julian, Charles, I don't know if you both are involved in this process and have been for many years. I don't know if either of you in this unusual setting would care to say anything about what the award means to you, and about specifically our selection of Alf this year.
Anyway, as you said, Matt, it really is a great honor, as we all know. But and in some ways, it's a motivation to be involved and inspire people in the hobby. The selection process is a labor of love. I know that. I know you worked hard on it this year, as Rob has done all of these years. Alf, I mean, you have no idea what goes on. It's all the people who have been awarded are involved in discussing all the fine personal details of the different people involved. Do they smell bad?
He'll find out next summer.
Yeah. It's not easy. I mean, it's certainly easy to put up a list of people because there are so many deserving people. And then it becomes hard every year to realize that we have to just pick one. But anyway, we managed to do it every time, and Matt got it done this year. Congratulations! And,
thank you, Julian.
Yeah, Charles?
Yeah, I would echo much of what has been said already. I mean, it is a very huge honor, and it also, I think it's a recognition and a validation to the effort and the work that we've all put into this, and our passion in this hobby as well. So I think that's really gratifying to be recognized for that. but and also to continue, to do inspire hobbyists, as Julian has said. But I think in my case, it's a little bit different because I took this as a hobby and turned it into a career in the public aquarium field. So my focus had changed, but I also got, was awarded all kinds of opportunities I never otherwise would have gotten as a hobbyist. Yeah. So I wanted to be able to share that with people. So my focus of a lot of my presentations since then has been more about things that we did and things that I would see in nature. In terms of with Alf's nomination, I know I had nominated him a couple of times, and there was a lot of discussion about, should we be recognizing international, since this is a Marine Aquarium Conference in North America? But I think the hobby is now international. There's no boundaries anymore. The internet has seen to that, and I think it's long overdue that we recognize people such as Alf and the contributions they made, and Peter Wilkins as well, even though they may not be as well known to hobbyists today. Yeah. As has been said before, they laid the groundwork, and none of us would be where we are now. Or we may be, 10, 20 years behind where we are now, because the information just didn't get out there quick enough like it happened in North America. That's why we were behind Europe and Asia and some other places when it came to starting into the reef aquarium hobby, because of, just getting that information out there and getting it not censored or ridiculed by others. So, and I think there's something to be seen in that as well, is that, no matter what your convictions are, if you feel that they're right and that there's just, and that you have evidence to back up your position, that you shouldn't back down from them. And one day they may be recognized as, that guy actually was right, or that young lady was actually right.
Obviously with COVID, pandemic, shipping delays everywhere, this has yet to make its way to Norway. But this is an example of the highly coveted. Maybe back up there so you can see it.
Oh, yeah. Very nice. Oh,
so
boy.
The MASNA Award, I think a number of us have this beautiful glass fish now, and one will be making its way, probably would get there faster swimming, to Norway for you.
Well,
so
thank you very much. I'm honored. You just have to pack it securely.
I'm very happy that for the recognition that Alf Jacob has received with this prize, as his contributions to the aquarium world, and not least to the work I have been doing for 35 years or more, has been immense. And I'm pretty sure that the Norwegian, the European, and parts of the world aquaristics would have looked quite different without the contributions of Alf. So congratulations, Alf Jacob. We have to take a champagne at a later date.
Yeah, lobster and champagne, that will be fine. Thank you very much, Wayne. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. For finding you online and finding your works and your pictures, where can people find more information about you?
My pictures are at the site called biophoto.net. It's photo with PH. And there is another site called biophoto.no. That's mostly Norwegian with articles and stuff. There are not so much aquarium related other than presentation of the books and some photos. I haven't put articles online on that subject, but there are a lot of photos there. So yeah, that's correct. And biophoto.no.
Where can people find English copies of the books that might still be in print? Do you know, are there any publishing houses or available places to buy them?
The only thing I can think about, and you might correct me, Svein, but I think they should contact Natur- und Tierverlag in Germany, in Münster in Germany. I don't know if there are anyone left in the States.
I fear it's very difficult to get new copies, but they do appear in various used booksellers. So I think that if you go to a site like Bookfinder, you will find several people selling some editions of our English books.
But it can't hurt to put the reference to Natur and NTV, Natur- und Tierverlag in Münster, online or whatever, because that is those guys that have what's left they are selling it. So
And I think
Yeah,
there are
what we'll
also
do-
still some vendors that go to MACNA, like Dirk, who has these books.
yeah.
Thank you, Charles. Yeah, we'll find the resources available for anyone who's watching. If you want to buy those, we'll provide those in a comment section here, or you can head to masna.org to Alf's bio, and you can find additional information about where to find the English copies that are remaining. So.
I would also like to thank the entire committee of MASNA Award winners and who helped go through this process of selecting our MASNA Award winner. It's always a challenging process. It's always an engaging process. And as I emailed out yesterday, part of this process, I get to learn things about aquarists who I may have known in passing. I get to find a deeper appreciation for the people who have been nominated. And so I wish to congratulate all the nominees as well. Consider it a friendly nudge to keep doing what you're doing because people value your contributions to the aquarium hobby and the aquarium community. So thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you. I hope to see you again soon, all of you. If you're ever here in southern Norway, come give me a call and come and stay with us.